Boom, boom! Welcome to episode 20 of the Confessions Podcast. I am your host, Chris Sweeney, but I'm a man down right now. He is sleeping, he is relaxing in the Caribbean. It's Mr. Hugh Hendry. He's in a hammock. Wake up, please. Come on, Hugh. We summon you. Comes, people. Here he comes. Look at that elegant way he disrobed there.
We did not rehearse that.
One take wonder.
Did I hear you saying I was relaxing? Baby, I was born never to. They took out the relaxation gene when I was born. It's a joke, relaxing. Anyway, welcome everyone. I have friends with benefits. I have friends on this island that have beautiful houses. I'm here in front of my new workstation. If you saw my tweet the other day on Twitter, bought a beautiful kind of vertical stand. I'm standing looking at a flat sea that every 5 minutes or so produces just the most beautiful wave sets. There's 4 kids out there and I'm envious. So let's get this thing on the go so I can get back out there and take some waves.
Let's get the party started, as they say. Now, I'm going to ask you very briefly. Credit Suisse have had a big data leak. They're involved in all sorts. Murderers, corrupt politicians, tax evaders. It's all over the media. Some whistleblowers leaked all this stuff to the media. And Credit Suisse is being dragged through the mud. As a former Credit Suisse legend, as we know, you were a legendary player in that operation. Are you the whistleblower?
There was a question somewhere in there. Answer, no. Was I a legend at Credit Suisse? No. Are they aware that I was even part of their organization? No. Is it a leak from The Guardian? Well,
and other newspapers. There's a collection of newspapers, not just a Guardian. To give it its due, there's other newspapers, an international consortium involved.
Okay. Let me tell you about leaks. I had a leak in December. A leak in the water pipe that connects my house with the main system. And it cost me 22,000 euros. That's the kind of leaks I have to deal with. This leak, this leak shows silos, the silo of journalism versus the silo of the markets, of risk markets, right? So there's no surprise that the financial markets have known about the leaky nature. They've known about the incompetence. Oh my God, the waves are impeccable. They've known about the incompetence with which an amazing money franchise has been run to the ground. Okay, so it's no, like, if you are active in markets, this is no news, either good or bad or without normative judgment. It's like, if you want to understand the world, let's look at risk, because you won't kind of you're finding it in a collection of newspapers like 10 years later. It's too late, people.
It is quite juicy because, I quite enjoyed lying in my bed, cup of tea, chocolate biscuit, and sort of pouring through it because, you're hearing about people you know of, but you don't really know. You're getting their inside business. So that's something, don't know. Everyone loves a car crash. I don't know if that's the thing I'm going for. Do you know what I mean? There's that interest, but you deal with these people, so it's not as interesting maybe for you. But I do think people quite like to see what the high and mighty are up to with their money.
I don't deal with them.
Well, you did. You had big people investing with you. I'm sure you had famous people, or people involved in big companies or royalty or whatever it is. People that are well known that you can't talk about. I'm sure there's some decent names you could furnish us with.
Yeah. Anyway, let's talk about Vlad the Blunderer. I haven't met him. Don't want to meet him. And let's ban every billionaire. Cut them off SWIFT and refuse passports. Send them all back home to Mother Russia.
So how big a deal is SWIFT for people that maybe don't use it so much? We're all just maybe got a normal job. We get paid in our accounts. We're not doing sort of payments around the world. How big a deal would them being cut off from SWIFT be?
Chris, ask our trucking friends in Ottawa. So the emergency powers executed, which seems a very apt word, by Trudeau to clear the demonstrations, were the equivalent of the SWIFT reprimand, which is to say, money never sleeps. Money is embedded into the fabric of our lives, and those demonstrators, without legal process, found their access to their bank accounts, to their credit card accounts, to their savings accounts. Everything was denied them. That power is a power that should be used, I believe, to govern the relationship between sovereign nations. I much prefer that power to nuclear missiles or tanks and missiles, other forms of missiles. But that's swift, and it is swiftly devastating. I think what is the largest bank in Russia was down 70%, Sberbank, I think it's called, this morning. So we're recording this on the Thursday of the day of the invasion. So swift is real, but it's a concern. There is now clearly a Dr. Strangelove. He claimed that he was freeing Ukraine from Nazis. The president's a Jew, but he's an idiot with nuclear missiles. So we have to make sure that that all the people around him, who are all billionaires, we have to make sure that all the billionaires are saying, why are we dealing with this idiot again? It was good when he was making us richer, but I just looked at my equity holdings, they're down 70%. Vlad has become a problem.
Absolutely. Well, we're going to come back to that. I just want to ask you briefly, take a slight side step to the left, and we're going to talk about gas, because obviously Russia, big exporter of gas. But what I did notice was that the chief executive of Shell, executive vice president Steve Hill, he has got it in for Hugh. He's not happy. He does not like Hugh, and he does not like the other Hedges. He has said that basically one of the other factors that also increased the high European prices and volatility we saw last year was the increased financial activity, and particularly a lot of new financial players like hedge funds coming into this market. So are hedge funds responsible for the volatility in gas? And is it acceptable for a person like him to come out and say it in the media? Do you feel you're being slandered, picked on, pushed into a corner?
Slander me every day. I mean, I'm kind of robust. A bit like, what was it called? Wim Duesenberg. Wim Duesenberg. You know who Wim Duesenberg was? Chris?
No, I did not know who Wim Duesenberg was. This is another one. You keep embarrassing me. It was, first of all, it was a weight of a tree. How the hell am I going to know that? And then now Wim Duesenberg. I don't know who Wim Duesenberg is.
Sounds like, anyway, so Wim sounds like someone that should feature in Mission Impossible. And indeed, he was chief of Mission Impossible. He was the first, and again, being first, therefore he was the compromise shoe-in candidate to lead the newly independent European Central Bank, the governing monetary authority of the continent of Europe. He was Dutch, and he was profoundly conservative, which is to say, his monetary orthodox would be hard money. Would be always on his guard to prevent the encroachment or the re-emergence of inflation, which is to say he was living and operating and being given authority at a time when he was hopelessly out of touch with the zeitgeist having formed, God knows when formed, but let's say it formed. He was appointed in the aftermath of the technology crash, which took the Nasdaq stock market and indeed the German stock market from a peak to a trough down about 80%, and he would keep, and there was a great need to reduce interest rates rapidly and try and revive the system to prevent the destruction of the stock of wealth was so rapid and so immense. It was of the nature almost of like 1 times GDP. It just, boom, gone, that you had to come in and try and resuscitate and heal the system to prevent it from accumulating and rolling into a decade of a depression. And he would say, I don't listen, but you get the drift. What was the question again? It was...
is it fair to say, because... Is it fair to say, because he's almost saying that hedge funds are causing all this volatility, and it just seems a little bit like, well, isn't that the kind of the dog wagging the tail? No, the tail wagging the dog. Sorry, is that the right phrase? You know what I mean? The volatility was there, and hedge funds are just working with it.
The worst thing is a wolf playing the piano. Playing the piano, or play. The worst thing is a wolf playing the violin, weeping and saying, "Hey, you know, be sorry for me. It's become so hard to get into the chicken coop. Go and do something with yourself." So first of all, biggest hedge funds in the energy space are departments of oil companies. Okay, oil companies have large banks at their core, and they trade and they speculate and they take delivery and they buy and sell futures and they write options on energy markets. Okay, so they're a hedge fund. So this is, hey, we're this really big hedge fund disguised as an oil company, been making a ton of money, and now these kind of nimbler, smarter hedge funds, i.e. competitors, come in and they're stealing our lunch. We're not happy.
Do one.
So, and then secondly, I was going to say more seriously, but I mean that is a serious charge. I think those comments would be better addressed not at the gas market, but we're going to talk about gas, but they would be better and more apt as a description of the last 12 months events in the European carbon credit permitting market, where we've had the launch both in Europe and the US. I want to say we've probably had the best part of $2 billion launched in the last year for dedicated funds, and there's a component of that, maybe a quarter of that, maybe 20, a quarter of that perhaps. No more, certainly no more than a quarter of that, is actually taking physical permits off market so that they just cannot be used. And so they're doing it with a profit motivation, but as I have tried to explain and extol, that in pursuing profit, they are actually allowing, they're being a constructive force in trying to create a pricing scarcity for the remaining window of the atmosphere, which will be subject to CO2 emissions. They're trying to say, hey, listen, we can't continue like we've gone on in the past. So the window was like, as I don't know, was huge because it was free. As we price that window and you realize how precious it is, that window is going to become really small, and that will force and confront you to change your industrial setup and infrastructure, whereby you can align your emissions to the shrinking size of that window. So figuratively, or to the letter of his word, he's exactly right. In lots of new money has come into a market which has been the exclusive market of these oil traders. Now, lastly, gas or energy or futures markets are all about speculating on the price of an item, of a commodity. So let's use gas. It's on the basis of so they run March, end of March, June, September, and end of the year, December. You know, they're quarterly, and financial hedge funds are typically not taking delivery. You are moving the price on. So it's a speculation as to where the price will be at the roll period, or it's a speculation that the price will be appreciating if you're long the asset. You can't take it on because that requires the infrastructure, that requires a very large investment. To be able to hold natural gas, you need an underground reservoir, and that's not cheap to build. That's more the undertaking.
Does the price come with delivery? I mean, I know it sounds stupid, but do you pay extra for? I mean, obviously you don't want it delivered, but could a hedge fund get their gas delivered to them? if they wanted it?
It is good question. It is so in the US, it is priced to a central hub, which is called the Hendry hub, and so the embedded price includes delivery to that to the so there's a hub and spike. There's these various pipelines coming into a central hub, like an airport, like an international airport.
Yeah.
Your price for delivery into that.
So you could go down there
central town
and take your gas out from the hub. Basically, you could take it out and drive off with it if you so wished.
Well, we're talking about natural gas here, so you wouldn't drive off with it. The problem with gas is the transportation of it is fiendishly difficult. But again, as an example, I can recall there's a monthly which features. I think it features later. We're going to talk about we're briefly bouncing off 2007 so that we can address issues in 2022. But I'm sure that was the year I actually launched explicitly the Eclectica Agricultural Equity Fund, and we launched exclusively an equity fund because rather than a futures fund. Because on the futures fund, the passage of time typically costs you money because you're not buying anything. I think the physical price, you're buying the estimated price in 3 months' time, or in 6 months' time, or in 9 months' time, or in 12 months' time, right? And so the more that price deviates, and typically that price is higher than the spot price, then you call that a negative carry. And so it's costing you to own it. Last week, we discussed natural gas in America, and we said there was an amazing bull market, which lifted the natural gas, the spot price. Like if you had physical, the price went from $1 to $6 per billion thermal units, BTU, and that happened over a 12-year period. But unless you are one of these energy companies and you actually have this physical, then if you're a financial speculator, all you have is a presence in these future markets. And so you're buying not today, but you're buying a price estimated for where it will be in the future. And you actually lost 80% of your money if you had been kind of a little bit too orthodox and you were just in the front futures contract. So you were in March, and then you rolled March into June into September, and you did that for 12 years. Despite the bull market, you lost 80% of your clients' money. The other thing I wanted to say in terms of why hedge funds don't take delivery. So I'm going to quote from 2007, one of our letters, and we were saying that at the prevailing price of corn, which I'm going to venture that if you look on a price chart, I'll bring one up, of corn, and the price chart of futures will not show you, it won't be total return. Very rarely is it total return, so it won't show you the rolling costs associated with it. If you had one corn futures contract and you took physical delivery, Chris, and you imagine the largest double axle, I want to say lorries, I want to say trucks,
yeah.
Now American trucks will have maybe triple or like quadruple axles, but Britain is smaller. But you think of like the really biggest truck that you can get on a British road. How many trucks would you need to send to the central hub to collect your corn where you took delivery with the ownership of just one contract? And that one contract typically is in a nominal dollar size of $1 million. How many, Chris?
How many? Again, how on earth am I going to know this? Obviously, you're sort of you're channeling to me that it's a large number. So I'm saying 40. 400. Whoa, that's a lot of corn.
So that's why you roll contracts, because it's the holding business. And again, that's why we started this whole thing by the comment, and the complaint was being registered by
Shell,
right? So they have that infrastructure and they can play those games. But hedge funds were playing the vagaries of financial futures. And lastly, again, if there's ever going to be a lastly, there is so there's this thing about what is a secondary market? Like, markets in the function whereby they provide finance have this very direct impact on our lives, on prosperity, on making things happen. And then there's a secondary market, which sometimes can be a theatre of absurdity, which is to say, kind of that it can remain, to quote John Maynard Keynes, it can remain irrational longer than you can remain solvent in trying to contest the irrationality. And what I want to say is that despite the absurdity, market prices, and this comes back to George Soros and the alchemy of finance and his notion of reflexivity, so not only do markets provide a source of finance to expand businesses, and the corollary of that is they take away finance by valuing businesses very lowly, which is to say, hey, we've looked at your business and you don't like the guy running it, maybe, or, like newspapers. Newspapers at the turn of this century peaked, and the stock market was saying, especially if they were leveraged. So prior to, at the end of the previous century, a newspaper was a recurring, safe depository of cash flow, and you could juice your financial returns by putting debt against that and expanding your business. And there have been numerous examples of press barons, and that's what they did. But the share prices began to fall dramatically as people looked to the future and determined that Google and the internet was pretty much going to destroy the gold mine which was embedded in newspaper franchises, which is the money they make on
classifieds, advertising classifieds. Yeah,
classifieds. That's what I was desperately searching for. Classifieds and advertising was the principal source of revenue. That's the stock market kind of saying, hey, stop guys, stop, or stop taking on more debt because we're seeing the future. You should see it, but maybe you're not. Maybe you're a little bit too centered on the now. We live in the future. We're calling you from the future. Again, as I speak and things, and forgive me, but forgive us, I cannot script this. This is spontaneous. The scripting comes ex post when I sit down and I look at it and I go, oh my God, this is a disaster. This is why it takes me 8 to 10 hours to splice it and put it back together again. But I have just finished a book called The Anomaly. And actually, I think I can remember the authors. Hervé Le Taulier, something like that. Now, yes, I have a penchant for French lit, but this thing sold. We were off camera, we were discussing books and book economics. This book sold 1 million copies in the French language.
Not bad. Not bad.
Thanks. The Anomaly, however, has been remarkably successful. And the best thing about it is I've managed to take, I want to say, about 10 good kind of quotes, like just pieces of language, which kind of made me go, these are kind of tools which may enable me to unlock the subconscious REM of how I am trying to engage with the future, engage with things that have yet to happen. And words, and well-written words, are a wonderful device for engaging and fusing the mind to quite suddenly get a synthesis and a comprehension. Anyway, I'm talking about that because the premise is an Air France flight which leaves, let's say, on the 16th of March last year, and 254 souls on board, nothing exceptional, a wide cross of society on the plane, and the device that they use is that 3 months later, on the 16th of June, That same flight comes into US airspace above Newfoundland, where we were talking about starting our Freedom Pipe to send natural gas to Europe.
The Hendry pipeline.
No, the Liberty pipeline.
I like the Hendry. The Hendry pipeline's better.
Stop it. The air control,
air traffic control.
Air traffic control, American air traffic control. We are flight, AF.
Well, it's Canadian. It's Canadian. Newfoundland's in Canada.
Sure, but you do an arc. You go up to the Arctic and then you come back down. When you go into the States from France, because you don't fly horizontally. You fly.
Yeah, but I think you're in Canadian airspace anyway. Maybe someone can help us out there. Anyway, it doesn't matter. The point is, the air traffic controllers they ring up the plane.
Yeah, okay. So it's not in dispute you're in Canadian airspace, but given that your destination is JFK, you will be
of course, yes.
Air control at JFK well before, in order to determine your safe passage from Newfoundland into JFK.
I'm with you.
There is great consternation because they're like, but you landed 3 months ago. And so, and who's the captain? So, what's the captain's name? It's the same captain. Who's the vice captain? It's the same. Can you send the log of the passenger log? It's all the same passengers. And so they scramble jets and they take them to an airbase and they bring them down. And it's a matrix. I can never pronounce it properly. A simulacrum, which is to say, it's like, are we real? What is real?
Yeah, a parallel universe.
The people on the screen, are they like this person I'm looking at in my camera? Is that person more than I am? And so you then have these. You have, if you will say I was on the flight, you have Hugh March and Hugh June, and Hugh March has spent three months, so has greater wisdom than Hugh June, just by the absence of what not having experienced it. And so markets are a bit like, you've got people managing businesses, and they are Hugh March, and stock markets or capital markets, futures markets are Hugh June, so they come from the future. So you've got people whose activities and mindsets are a function of that intertemporal displacement, which is a long way of saying that Europe is in a profound pickle. And we picked upon this last week, but there have been grievous policy errors by the consistently weak leadership of the European statehood when it comes to energy. And there are culpable parties within our society, most notably these loonies, these Extinction Rebellion and Green parties, that have contributed to the spineless nature of politicians in ensuring that Europe has not been prospecting for new oil and gas energy discoveries within its domain, and has not been investing in trying to find other sources from stable democracies like Norway, which is a huge natural gas recipient.
Didn't Norway come out? Didn't they come out recently? Equinor, the one of the bosses at Equinor, saying that Norway is already putting out as much gas as it can, and it wouldn't be able to supply Europe. So basically, don't come here.
No, well,
well, don't come here. Sorry, but I mean, they can't fulfil the demand. Is what I meant. Maybe they can only do so much. They are not your way out of this.
We're not your solution, is what they were saying. So again, this is all about intertemporal timelines and how the past impacts today and the future impacts today. Okay, what he's saying is that owing to that profoundly disastrous lack of backbone and intelligence, Europe was not going to the sovereign nation of Norway and saying, hey, let's can we build a big pipe and take your natural gas? They weren't interested. Norway built some pipes, and Norway is connected, and Norway is supplying, but it's supplying on the basis of infrastructural investments that they've made, which could have been many times greater had there been the insight of the vulnerabilities which were being created with Europe. So Europe, a good thing, has now moved, like all major economies, we've moved to largely not burning coal, which has meant we've substituted coal burning turbines. They've been displaced by gas burning turbines, and as we've discussed previously, Chris, gas emits 50% less carbon, CO2. So half of the energy demands are now coming from gas, except Europe has no gas. It has no gas. Zero gas, okay? And so it's like, so now it's always been apparent, but now more of the citizens are going, we don't have any gas. And quite frankly, I'm not happy. If I had a baguette, I would bash you over the head, but owing to your damn incompetence. And again, intertemporal things, what are you going to do about it? I get people saying, yeah, well, just build nuclear power stations. Great. What is the reality? Between then and now, Germany will close the other 50% of its nuclear power stations within the next year, right? So they will be at zero. This is the largest damn economy in Europe, right? And who proposed that strategy? The Greens. They're nut jobs. Anyway, so the problem, and so that's the very short term now, but yeah, go build a nuclear power station. It takes you 20 years, like from saying, hey, let's do it, to turning it on. 20 years, maybe it's 15, but kind of it's 15, 20 years. 20 years. So what are you going to do between now and then? Okay. So then they say, hey, let's do LNG, liquefied natural gas. Okay, so LNG, Chris. So there are some LNG terminals in Europe which are receiving gas, liquefied, predominantly from the US. It's tiny. Why is it tiny? Because they have not been prioritizing this thing. Because it's okay, we'll just take the gas from Russia. How good an idea does that sound today? It's okay, we'll just take the gas from Russia. Okay, so it's not okay. So LNG has a lot of hype and a lot of excitement around it, and will be embraced by politicians. And again, it's a great error. And back to that Shell comment from the traders saying, these new entrants are coming into our markets. They're pushing prices up. They're getting in the way. We don't like it. These are the insiders that if we sit freezing at home, if we have families that can't heat and put the lights on, and we do nothing about it, then you're all serfs and you all deserve misery. Okay. Instead, you got to activate your senses. Now, again, not by chaining yourself, but by getting involved. Because what I'm saying is, until we get the merits of carbon permitting schemes onto the front page of popular newspapers, and we get ordinary folks saying, you know what, I'm going to buy those permits, because if I buy those permits, it stops Shell and BP using it to emit carbon. Okay, but if you don't have that personal responsibility and commitment and ownership and understanding, then you are going to be subject to propaganda as vile as that comes out of the fascist Russian state. And that's what you get in that statement from the Steve Bozo from Shell, because they're kicking back. We've got to be standing there saying, you're not fooling us. You're not, you're talking garbage, right? We the citizens understand this market, and we're going to price them up. We're taking the pricing away from you. We're going to own the pricing. So that's very, very powerful. So again, we have to educate people whose job is not to sit in front of computers every day. LNG is not a good thing. And again, if we're not careful, politicians will go for something which is not a good thing. Remember, these are the same genetic idiots that promoted diesel. Yes, you're going to say there was fraudulent testing practices by German car manufacturers, by European car manufacturers. But, who on earth conceived that diesel should be diesel? They promoted the widespread adoption of diesel. They are idiots, and they're going to make the same mistake with LNG. What is the problem with LNG? You are turning, metaphorically, gas into coal. And remember, this whole process began with identifying that coal produces too much carbon, and that we can't do away with energy. We still will need energy, especially for the 6 billion folk that are consuming almost nothing, and will surely need more. So energy and a commitment to generation will persist, but let's do it with less carbon emissions. And that's where gas comes in. 50% less. 50% is a big number. Okay, so we've moved from coal burning to gas burning. When you go to LNG, the process of liquefying gas so that it can be transported in a gigantic steel ship, and it can be transported from an enormous terminal in America or Qatar to an enormous terminal on the coastline of Wales or Normandy or wherever. Because I remember we talked about the 60 kilograms of carbon implicit in a barrel of oil, and we said probably 30 of that comes from like the extraction of the oil out of the ground and the moving around of it, and no more than maybe 50% of that comes from the burning of the thing. Well, that's what happens. The immense difficulty of transporting gas, whereby you liquefy it to transport it, you generate or you emit so much carbon in that process that you might as well burn coal, right? But if we don't get that message out, these diesel burning idiots are going to say, hey, we got the solution. And again, that solution is 20 years, minimum 20 years to build all that infrastructure. This should have been done 20 years ago. The fact that it hasn't is the
horse is bolted. The horse is bolted, Hugh. The stable door is open and the horse is galloping across the meadow, and we are hanging on for dear life.
So we were talking about futures markets, speculation and the like. Now, I was looking, and I'm going to post the price chart for the British natural gas. So this would be, if you're American, this would be the equivalent of nat gas for Henry Hub delivery, and then the metrics, the metric of energy units is different. So the price is not the same. Natural gas in America, the spot winter price is about $4.60. In the UK. So the UK price on another metric is, well, yesterday was trading at £212. Let's say. I imagine that's probably 220, 230. But if you put that into, if you put it pari passu, apples for apples, the UK price for gas delivery is more like $65 versus $4.50 in America. And that's not just the UK being odd and exceptional. That is writ large across the continent. That is what happens when a generation ago you make profound errors of character, intelligence, courage, social conscience, foresight. When you make all of those errors, you find that like one of the wealthiest, largest economic areas in the world is paying 12x what America is paying for energy, and energy is everything. So anyway, something really, really interesting for everything we've said. So there will be opportunities to make money and to lose money. It's not a guaranteed thing either way, and it's a double-edged sword. Risk can cut you both ways. Gas in Europe has to trade at a very, very, very high price to create the profit incentive, and actually to create the acute political pain, which is like putting a gun to the feeble minds of politicians and saying, you bozos, look what I'm paying to heat my house, owing to your people, right? Sort it out. They will never sort it out if the price of gas was way below where it is. So that's happening in markets. The price of gas in Europe has probably gone up 5-6-fold versus last winter. That's the market saying there's a real shortage now because our Russian friends are not supplying it. But so typically you find that like cold winter periods, gas is very determined. The gas price is typically operates at full capacity, obviously in the winter, and then at huge surplus in the summer. And so you got to compare winter prices with winter prices in the future, summer prices with summer prices in the future. So you would expect that this year's winter price, given everything that's going on, would trade high and would trade higher the next winter because there would be some expectation that the situation might be resolved. What's been happening, and so I love this. Remember, this is me as a kid at university, not knowing how I'm going to spend my life, and then I'm given a data stream terminal and doing market-based accounting research, and I got this portal on market prices, and you're seeing this kind of invisible phantom. They tell you it's out there, but you never see it. And then here are these market prices, which are like footprints of this invisible, profoundly powerful force. That's what gripped me. That's why I'm here today in St Barts looking at this beautiful surf. What you're seeing is that the winter gas for delivery next year has boom gone up to the same price. That's unusual, and that's telling you this isn't this is going to be resolved in a year, and it's just lifting it. So the curve is lifting. That's a very rare occurrence. Normally it's like the front of the curve goes a lot higher, and that's to encourage investment so that we can bring future energy to where we need it now in the present. But such is the scale of the problem that winter 23 is now trading pari passu. Winter 24 is going to hit the same. Winter 25 is going to hit the same because this is going to take a generation to resolve. Europe is screwed. And
it's a serious problem, isn't it? Yeah.
I'm being screwed were I to be actively managing money, and I would be going long these forward calendar dates and saying, because of this profound political mistake, the whole curve has to lift higher and higher and higher. And we're chipping away, Chris, because we're saying, hey, give us a Liberty pipeline. The Russians did it with Nord Stream, and we can do it across the Atlantic. And some people were fantastically generous on Twitter, and were offering a lot of the practical difficulties of such a thing. And again, the practical difficulty is the movement, because we're saying you've got to liquefy. You can't liquefy for the pipeline. But you need base stations, and it's affecting pressure. Gas moves from high to low or low to high. That's how you move gas through the pipeline. All of which actually was the subject matter, I think, in that James Bond Casino Royale. That was a pipeline. And remember, James goes through the pipeline at some point. So James could probably move on a bobsleigh in the pipeline, but gas moves by differentials in pressure. And so you have to put subsea base stations, which are pressure points, just to keep moving it. Kind of okay. There are deep canyons in the Atlantic, so the levels you've got to go down to, that's an issue. You get geological movement, that's a profound issue. But the gas that comes out the other end has the same less carbon emitting properties as the gas that went in at the other end. So it's still a lot better than LNG, and I wish it would get more serious engineering attention. NATO has been demonstrated to be a complete waste of time. So the idea of spending $1.3 trillion on weapons which you cannot deploy against an enemy with the nuclear arsenal, it was a game of bluff, and bluff's been called. And so actually you require different forms of weaponry, and it happens again that these are weapons that have utility as opposed to death. And then lastly, another question for you, Chris. So now you know that the average weight of a tree is...
Was it 1 ton?
Yeah, and you know that on average a tree will extract how much CO2 from the atmosphere?
Oh, Jesus, I don't know. What was it? It was, I don't know. I can't remember what it was. I don't know. You're putting me on the spot here. Was it? I don't know. I can't remember. 100,000 or something like that. Was it something like that? No, it was...
Okay, so you're getting mixed up with the number of trees that you have to plant to be able to...
There we go.
Absorb the 40 billion tons of carbon which is emitted each year, and we were saying you'd have to plant the same number of trees as there are stars in the Milky Way, but that wasn't the question. So a tree will remove its weight, the equivalent of its weight in carbon.
Oh yeah, I do remember now. Okay, right, I remember you. Yeah.
Okay. How? And that wasn't the question, because you were meant to know the answer to that. You were meant to be taking notes, and I asked you that question 2 weeks ago. So here's a follow-up. How many tons of carbon does a whale remove over the lifetime of a whale? Whales kind of like, you could say, are like trees.
If anyone in the comments knows this answer before he tells us, I would be stunned. Because, I mean, how on earth did you come across this? Where on earth did you hear this fact? A whale, its entire life, if a tree's removing 1 ton of carbon, how much is a whale? Let's think about a whale. What ton of its life? I will say
they have a similar lifespan and possibly the similar weight.
I will say 350.
Okay, so about 36 tons.
Right. Okay. Fair enough. Well, I was miles away. Okay.
No, but still, it's 36. It's 36 times that of a tree.
Yeah.
Anyway, on top of that, do you remember what we said? What was the other problem with the tree? So the problem was you needed too many to be of any practical consideration.
Yeah.
What was the second problem? Do you remember the second problem?
Too many, and then the tree then dies itself, and it emits all the carbon that it was holding. So you're sort of back to square one in some sense.
Yeah, that doesn't happen with a whale. When a whale dies, it sinks to the bottom of the seabed, and it becomes a nourishment for vitality in the life of whatever lives down there.
How did you get into whales? How the hell did you get into whales? Like, where did you get this? This is like, where do you find this stuff? Like, what? I don't know what you do all day. I mean, I don't get it what a hedge fund manager does. I mean, I've never come across this type of stuff.
I'm not a hedge fund manager. I got that from Instagram.
Okay, you were a hedge fund manager.
I got that from someone who is not only uber successful, uber commercially successful, but is a superstar and is a friend and
that's a bit juicy. You can't leave us on that. A superstar and as a friend. What would we know this person's name if you told us?
Yeah, and I'm not going to tell you, so let's move on.
Oh. Now, is there a difficulty in making money from other people's misfortune? Because obviously there's going to be a lot of innocent people here that are going to be caught in all this, that are going to, be starving, homeless, killed. and there is going to be money to be made. So how do you balance all that as a hedge fund boss?
So some people will, so that seems very powerful. Some people will make money. Okay. What if there are 10,000 participants? I'm making up this number. There are 10,000 participants and 3 people make money. That statement holds true, doesn't it? That's a very true statement. Some people will make money.
Yes, that is a correct statement, yes.
That's a correct statement, okay. What if you then discover that it's 3 people out of 10,000 will make money, and the other, i.e. the majority, will lose money? Does that differ? Do you see how that changes the significance?
No, I agree. No, I'm not attaching any blame or moral hazard to these people for making money. That's absolutely fine. I'm just saying that I think that it's a very delicate situation. I just wonder how people approach it. Do they look at it as a normal economic transaction, or is there other ways of looking at it when you've got this kind of war thing going on?
So where you'd be making money, I'm making money today. Where you'd be making money would be if you had the foresight, and we've been talking about this for the last month, the vulnerabilities embedded into the European energy market. Mm-hmm. You'll be making money today because you're long the forward calendar points in natural gas, and they're all limit up. By my making money, I have for all intents and purposes, a kind of passive portfolio of gold, silver, and related equities, and they have been hell on earth. Their performance has been profoundly grotesque for the last since August 2020. Remember, we talked about the dawn of chaos. We talked about regime shift. We talked about 40 years, like the reimposition of sanity, of order. And in the early 1980s, the American central bank got new leadership, and equity and risk markets embraced policymakers making decisions which were really tough for now, but had these overwhelmingly positive legacies, and so markets have just appreciated enormously. We were saying that was welcomed owing to the insanity and the chaos of the 1970s. But the 1970s was one where the price of gold went from $35 an ounce to $850 an ounce. Gold is something which works when chaos is reintroduced to the world, and the chaos, the manifestation of chaos, again came from energy, and it came from energy and kind of silly point scoring politics. I mean, that's being a bit light, but the Arab embargo of Western oil, it came. But we had Russians, we had a Russian military intervention, the invasion, the disrespect for another sovereign nation. Sounds familiar. We had a rogue state, the new Mujahideen in Iran, and the mullahs did something outrageously audacious. They went, "Hey, let's take the American embassy hostage." Woo! And they did it, and they're like, "Oh my God," or "Oh Allah," or whatever the expression is. We've just stirred up a hornet's nest. I mean, we've just poked the eye of the 10-ton gorilla. He ain't happy, and when he's not angry, he's gonna come in and he's gonna destroy us. And the 10-ton gorilla went, "Can you please give me my hostages back?" And the Mujahideen went, "What do you mean? You ain't kind of gonna wipe us off the face of the planet? You mean actually you're kind of like, really?" And that's the danger. That's the danger in Europe today, if there is appeasement. And for sure, with people like Macron and the Germans and all of them in high public office, given the acute vulnerability they have from this energy thing, they will be desperate for appeasement. The Americans have to bomb the pipeline of Nord Stream and just take the appeasement option off the table. Will they do it with Biden? I mean, Biden feels like Jimmy Carter from 79. Yeah. Gold is up today. Future-based natural gas prices. Future's up today just saying, told you so, war's becoming bonkers again. And in a world with chaos, investors, what you hear people say more and more, I suspect, is in gold we trust.
In this church, it's in Hugh Hendry we trust. This is the Church of Hugh Hendry, this podcast. You are the Archbishop, and we trust in you, my friend. We trust in you.
This is the acid capitalist church.
So today, will there be companies or sectors, because of what's happened in Russia and Ukraine right now, will there be things that are going to take a massive haircut, a massive drop in value that...
Mm-hmm.
Will there be companies or people take a massive haircut, a drop in value that people could invest in, and then once the situation calms down, the value will rise again?
Put up a chart of Facebook or the Meta. And Facebook has halved, and it's halved this year. And I put something out saying, is Facebook, I don't like Facebook, but I do use Instagram. I use WhatsApp. It's part of the fabric. They've announced spending ambitions to develop their Meta platform, which are frighteningly large, but it's 50% down, and that's kind of pricing behavior. So what's happening there is realized volatility is spiking higher, and we saw that. My feet are being burnt my naked feet are being burnt by the sun. That was a hallmark that's a hallmark of bubbles. So the technology bubble from 1997 that flared out and topped out on March 2000, so 3 years, was matched. But what you saw was stocks of that genre would fall 50%, and it's almost like it's a coil, and they fall that amount, and people are like, I told you, like they were massively overvalued. It furnishes Schadenfreude when actually you should be buying. Yeah? And so when I see Facebook and I can buy it below 200, can buy it like at 193. Will it fall further? Yes. If you buy it today, does that matter? Depends. Will it be rewarding in 12 months, 24 months time? I think yes. There's a scale. So what's going on just now, I would call it retribution, that investors had a lot of money and they didn't kind of have any choice. It's such a large component of indices. So passive investors have no choice. They have to own it. And who cares about them? They don't think. So we don't really. If you don't think, you have no soul. I think the definition of a soul is something which is subject to reflection. So passive. We care about the economic consequences of passive. But in terms of the managers, we don't care. We care more about active managers. And I was saying to you, mirror, mirror on the wall, who is the smartest of them all? When I was managing my fund, and I kept looking for the score. So for active managers, that genius or the bêtise of being either being the binary of I'm an idiot, I'm a genius, is largely determined by reference to a benchmark. And so the people who actively decide what's in their portfolio, a lot of them, and the majority of them, are weak, and they capitulate and they give up. And so they'd have gone, Facebook might be overvalued, and I can't stand Mark Zuckerberg, and I don't understand their strategy, and they've changed the name, but it's going up, and so I own it. And that's typically what happens. You capitulate and you bend yourself to obey trend, and then the market goes, I got you. All right. And as it goes down, you get retribution. You get all these guys go, sell. I knew that thing was overvalued. So, and then they're kind of, how much did I lose? Why did I hate myself? I hate that company. It's all emotional. Emotion defines the landscape of markets, but and emotions have to be understood. But when of a business of the nature of Facebook, which is not going to disappear and is not going to do too much franchise damage, I think, in the next 10 years, to be offered the opportunity to buy it down 60% from its high can't be a bad thing. Doesn't guarantee anything, but that's kind of where you have to distill emotion try and say you say, you know what, things change and emotion is really raw just now, and there'll be a point where your emotion has healed and where the greed function comes back. Now, that's not an endorsement of Facebook. Where the market is today, Chris, I think one of the benchmarks. So what I'd be doing, and this is cookie me again, but I think 3 weeks ago I took us through the Dow Jones.
Yeah, the rotator.
30 large stocks, and the first one, because it's alphabetically listed, was Apple, and Apple was trading at around $170, and we had two very, very slow moving averages, and so it's a bit like the averages are the tortoise, and then the spot price is the hare. The hare, again, it's intertemporal. The hare is the here and now. The hare being the fast rabbit, not my hair. The fast rabbit reflects like now, and then you've got these turtles on this long journey trying to catch up. And what we saw was that the hare was sitting on an elevated perch of about $170, but through the prism of if you took the average price of the last 20 months, why 20 months? Why not? I liked numbers which are divisible, and 20 and 40 were kind of things that I liked. And engagement of those averages was something which provoked curiosity in my mind. And also I observe, anyone can observe, that you seem to get reversion. So we have this thing, reversion to mean, and for me that was always a very crude estimation of mean reversion. Would be the tortoise pace of the 20-month moving average. Remember, so what is 20 months? 20 months is just under 2 years. 1 3/4 years. 40 months. Very, the amount of conflict or things that have to go wrong to take the spot price down to the average of the last kind of 4 years is really a lot. Probably Facebook is close to that. Anyway, I was checking before coming on, and so that mean reversion point for Apple is about 130. And so if this Russian thing really just continues to flare, and sadly at this point in time I can't really think of a reason why it shouldn't continue to flare unless we get this dreadful moral appeasement. I think this chapter of what we'll soon be calling a bear market, remember we discussed that the financial media defines bear markets when you've passed the territory of a 20% decline. The S&P, I think today is about down 15% from its highs. I think NASDAQ maybe is touching on the door of 20%. So bear market territory. I think that this raw period of, oh my God, WTF, what's going on? I think I would be looking for Apple to mean revert to the 20-month moving average, which is like down another 30 points, which is a lot. That is a lot. That would be like 20% below where it trades now. I say Apple because it was the first stock in the Dow rotator that we looked at, but seriously, more succinctly, because Apple's been a little bit of the zeitgeist. Apple, the first trillion company, the first $2 trillion company, the first $3 trillion company.
Exactly.
And so it defines, and so a bear market, you can only have a bear market, and you can have a really major correction which fools everyone. You need a major scalp. You need the scalp of the leader, and nothing's wrong with Apple if it trades at 130. Give me Apple at 130, and then I would be at a macro level. I'd be kind of going, actually, so we're in a macro reset environment just now, where everyone went, hey, no problems, to and it's like, hey, come back. What do you mean come back? No, come back. There's something over here, So, Apple, I would be one of those straws. Here I'm looking at there are no surfers now. So if I wrap this thing, I can get onto the web.
Well, before you grab your surfboard, two quick things. One thing I wanted to ask you was, you talked about we're entering a bear market and we've got all this destabilization and things are going wrong. So would you be, this is your perfect time, isn't it, to shine? This would be, if you were a hedge fund right now, this is the time when you come into your own, isn't it? People are struggling. People are looking for guaranteed returns. This is where you deliver.
Okay, so to the second point, maybe. To the first point, I did not say categorically, I did not say we're going into a bear market. The language of bear markets and bull markets is the language of cartoons. It's so binary, and I live in a world which is obtuse. I said to you that the financial media define...
I'm predicting a bear market, yes.
No, I'm saying... because they don't predict jackass. I'm saying to you that they will... so after you've had a 20% decline, which is an enormity, they will then come out and say, we're in a bear market. And, it's such a meaningless statement. So I'm simply pointing out the behavior of financial media, which kind of is this kind of... We don't live in a vacuum. We have this amplifying creature. We have this mirror on the wall, which kind of manifests. You go there seeking it's this, you read it shamefully with all of your worries and aspirations and hopes, and it amplifies a lot of it, and then you bounce back into taking risk. And if you've got social media or financial media amplifying what you're thinking in your head, you're gone. So I did not, and I do not suggest to anyone that we are entering a bear market. I hope that is clear.
So you've racked my knuckles a few times, but can I tempt you with the Wheel of Fortune? Or can I tempt you this week?
Sure. And
a number, please, Maestro.
36.
36, okay, 36. Here we go. Do you have a hedge fund story involving milk?
Where does this come from? Milk. I remember. Heavens to me! I remember. No, it's not milk. Tell me, does banana? Can you make me an insider? If it does, I will save it. But does banana feature in the Wheel of Fortune?
It does not. But I
do recall one of my visits to Tokyo when I had this China blow-up fund, and again I talked about volatility. I was buying cheap volatility. The fact that it's cheap doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to go up, and in this case it certainly didn't go up. So I was enriching a lot of Japanese traders, and I would visit Japan maybe 4 times a year, and one of those trips occurred after the Fukushima disaster, and certainly I think a good 3 or 4 months later. But the offices, they weren't, these skyscrapers, they didn't have the AC on, and Japan in the summer is profoundly humid. So that, and then they all smoke. So it was I remember that. But I remember that I only ate bananas, imported bananas, because who knows how much For sure, everything was radiated after Fukushima. So not milk, but went to Japan, and given the money that I was spending, so people have chaperones. I had, you like this, I had someone, such was my stature, I had someone who was designated as the banana carrier, and he followed me around, and when I was beginning to wane, a banana was presented. True story.
How did you know the bananas were How did you ensure the bananas were foreign bananas? I mean, how did you know it wasn't a Japanese banana? Or can you not grow bananas in Japan? Am I showing my ignorance?
I suspect southern Japan probably goes far enough down where you can. I have to say it was a question of trust, and they were stamped as coming from elsewhere, but was the stamp fictitious? It's like, really, do you want to go that far? I mean, Japan is kind of rich. Buying an imported banana is not a big deal for Hendry, the acid capitalist, who is the king of credit, or the bozo of credit, who keeps buying the stuff and enriching others. The guy wants a banana. He wants it from Honduras. You got it, my friend. So,
and it's peeled for you as well. Peeled as well. Here you go.
Oh, I always insist on my bananas being peeled.
Anyway, people, the sun has gone down on me, as you can see, but the sun is still shining for Mr. Hugh Hendry. And everyone out there, my advice to you is shine bright like a diamond. We will see you next week. Good night, everybody. See you next week.